All right, thank you all and welcome to the Corporate Service Committee meeting for the Upper Hunter Shire Council on 21st of March 2025. Held at Council Chambers. I call this meeting open at 9 a.m. and we'll go through, I think these are all elementary today, but we'll look for any applications by video link. No, Mr. Chair. Any apologies?
No apologies there.
Disclosures of interest.
None submitted so far.
And being nobody in the gallery, I doubt we have any public participation. And so we'll move quickly into the business items with corporate finance committee reports. Please, Mr. Phillips.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Welcome everyone. So I'll just quickly go through the financial summary and investment report on page 3. So pretty well down the bottom there, the financial information summary. We've got at the end of February there was a positive variance of 2.7 roughly $1 million to budget, which is compared to a 317k positive variance noted at the end of December 24. Number of reasons for that, which we'll go through with the highlighted reasoning behind the operating revenue and expenditure and capital expenditure coming through. We'll look at the operating expenditure to start off with, which is primarily the main reason why we've got a good positive balance to budget at this point in time, at the end of February. A lot of it is to do with the timing, but also a bit of extra grant funding and stuff coming through. We'll just quickly go through the high-end level items that make up that $3.7 million. Government place, we've got the revenues a little bit higher there by about 50k. It's pretty well got a bit of additional funding from the government, just depending on dependency of residents in the facility. It was offset by a bit lower in residence fees, even though we've got a bit of extra funding in grant funding from the personal care. Our actual occupancy is still around that 14-15 mark, so that's why we're a little bit down in our residence fees itself. Also, the Early Learning Centre, its revenue is higher than the 170,000. Predominant factor of that is about 112,000 in preschool education funding. So we can start strong funds that come through to assist us with developing the young folks over there from 3 to 4-year-olds to get ready for school life in kindergarten. So that's the main reason for that coming through. And also we've had a bit of an increase in our utilisation, which should take effect pretty well all the way now through to the end of the year. Now that we've got another ECT on board over there, so our demand and our utilisation has increased coming through. Family daycare, its revenue is up by about 140k. Higher than expected childcare fees. Again, utilisation has been quite handy coming through. But also there's been a change in the factor of how it's billed now. Councils from January this year, effectively councils taking more of a risk by charging all the fees to the parents. Beforehand, it used to be we only were involved in the childcare benefit. But the government now saying, no, we want council or the provider to take on all the risk. And we effectively have debtors on our books now for the other half of the childcare fees coming through.
Are they historical debtors? Are they?
They start brand new, and we've got in place a direct debit clears their account every week coming through. But there is some that haven't got that in place, and we're monitoring those as they're coming through.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, can you just flesh out family daycare? Now, my understanding of that is that there are family daycare centres throughout the Shire. So what you're saying is that they used to do their own direct billing to parents?
Yeah.
And now the government's saying, Upper Hunter Shire Council, you need to do all that billing yourself?
Yeah, put it in the realistic terms coming through. The family daycare is a home care arrangement where we have a number of educators that will take on 1 to 5 children as a focus every week coming through. Previously, the way that the functions worked was that we manage and control that network coming through. We get a fee for that. We were collecting the childcare benefits because each parent can't collect the childcare benefits coming through the mix. Those childcare benefits then we remitted to the parent. Less an admin fee, which has come through as like normal. The change in the actual billing side of it, the actual childcare or the department requested that the provider or the being council take on that responsibility of billing the resident, the customers, which is all the parents, direct. So beforehand, the parent or the educator was charging the parent half the fee. It was all intertwined, and there was no real capture of total fees that were being paid for family daycare side of things. So we have to accept the risk now of that. And there was a lot of childcare or educators out there that were charging overs as well. Now it's in the set fee arrangement.
So through you, Mr Chair, just so we get all this money in and we collect what we do and et cetera, but we also remit to the educator their fees as well, we? And that's what now, some sort of a set.
Yeah.
Set.
So effectively, the educator is guaranteed of getting the funds for what they're entitled to. Previously, they ran a risk of not being paid by the parents, and that was totally at the discretion of the educator. So they might have their own debtor package there where they've had children keep coming, and one parent might owe $1,000 and they've got no recourse for it. So they more or less looked at the whole industry and said, okay, well, to not put those educators at that risk, we'll make the actual provider, being Upper Shire Council or another, there could be private providers out there as well. It's not just Upper Shire Council, it's across the industry. They will push that back onto the actual provider to actually take that risk on. And the educators effectively then work for us. It comes into a contract or arrangement, effectively. Moving down to the private works, here we're a bit lower in our revenue streams, by about 62K. We haven't really had much focus on private works. The demand comes and goes as needed by customers out there. With a lot of our capital works and maintenance programs at the moment, we don't have the manpower to really chase the work, so we haven't been chasing the work coming through.
Just in that point, I've just got something to raise. I live on a private road, and an approach was made to council by one of our residents saying they council come and grade the road, we paid them to do it. The council said, so we're not interested. We're not competing with our private contractors for work. Is that the policy of council now?
Through you, Mr Chair, quite often the private works will depend on our availability, as Mr Phelps said firstly. So if our grade drivers are all tied up, we might divert them off.
That wasn't the answer we were given. The answer that we were given was that we're not competing with our contractors.
Yeah,
Private work.
I have to have a look at the specific request and probably get back to you. For driveways and things like that, small driveways,
2 kilometres
we might do it.
road.
2 kilometres of road, yeah. And again, I have to have a look and see if it was part of our normal maintenance schedule. Or if it's, yeah. Okay, so there's a lot of factors there. I'll probably get some details on you later.
The answer was, we're not interested, we're not competing with our contractors.
Yeah, that's an interesting
It
response.
was a very interesting response.
Yeah, I'll follow it up if you can give me some details.
Okay, yep.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, so also with real estate revenue, it's low about 50K at the moment. We've had lower than expected rental from the Camps Corner facility, plus a couple of other commercial properties. So with Camps Corner, we've got a vacancy down there that's been vacant for a while, which is the old cafe. That comes into play there, and also we've had another shop that's been available for probably the last 3 months as well. So it's a little bit lower than we anticipated coming through. Hopefully that will improve coming through the next 6 months. Waste management revenue was higher by about $610,000. So we've had higher than expected annual resident access charges. plus also landfill, disposal costs coming in. Obviously, some of that increase in landfill has come from council's projects that they're undertaking, so we get charged the same amount of money as what the rest of it is coming through. So that goes against our maintenance and our capital works program. General revenue was high by about 325,000, had a little bit extra in our general rating income. The main reason for the 325 is the indexation of our financial assistance grants, which we've got into play, which is probably a couple of $100,000 of that 320. And also we've had better than expected interest on our investments coming through the mix.
Is the indexation rate account for CPI?
Effectively, yes, yeah. So the financial assistance grants, when they calculate it based on a very broad calculation on road length and residence and so forth, that may have a portion of it, but predominantly it's indexation. You don't have to index it by. It's a different spectrum from the feds compared to the state. With the regional block grants, we're hardly getting any increase. But the actual financial assistance grants went up by probably about 3%. So that was quite pleasing.
So about half of what it ought to go up by.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
at least it was better than the feds. Moving into the town planning revenue, it's high by about nearly $250,000. So we've had new contributions obviously coming through now for Dartbrook, Mac Energy DPAs, and also the Energy Res funding coming into the mix. So those funds have been quite pleasing coming in, and obviously we put those funds away for community, especially with Dartbrook and Mac Energy. White Park revenue is down by about $105,000. Little disappointing. It's lower than expected from the events there, so we're definitely looking at the fee structure at that facility and why we haven't been able to achieve the amount of revenue what we budgeted for. So we have got a number of major events that are coming up at the moment, but we are taking a very close look at the actual revenue structure, and we had a meeting with the committee only in the last week or so, and demonstrating to them that we think that it's not totally commercial rates at this point in time. So we're looking at that coming through.
I think possibly part of it, some of us were at that, right? So my concern is that there seems to be an attitude amongst some of the members of the committee, perhaps the White Park users, that more facilities need to be built and less money paid for the use of those facilities. And I think there needs to be a shift in the attitude of the users of White Park. It needs to be. Fees need to be set on a more commercial basis, and they're just going to, I'm afraid, the fees are going to have to go up, because I know the rebate for local user groups up to 75% of it is for on the usage fees. That's something I think that really has to be looked at. At the end of the day, it's a pretty good facility. I think the facilities that are provided there for the use of participants in events are excellent compared to some of the sports grounds that I'm aware of and played at and camped at. It's a little perplexing to me that they can't make money out of it. I think it is the fee structure that is the problem, and as well as the attitude that we want more for less. But that's two different fronts that we have to have a fight on, I think.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just to add to that. I think Councillor Fraser's correct in that there was maybe an expectation given to some of the local users when that facility was built that they would have continued use of that facility at a fairly low price. As you saw at the meeting last week, I tried to demonstrate that we can't continue to enhance the facility and provide low pricing. And there was even a request for more staff in there. So you can't continue to do those type of things without looking at fee structure. We will continue to probably bring that fee structure back to the community. But there is certainly, I guess, a philosophy that has been changed down there that you can't have everything on hand, not pay for it.
Thank you. Moving into our next item there, which is the aerodrome revenue. It's lower by about 72,000 at this point in time. Landing fees were only marginally down in numbers coming to the end of January. Main reason for the lower amount, we went through our data at the moment. We're only recognising the revenue coming through on a cash basis. the end of February, we had about $23,000 worth of debtors outstanding, so we're trying to chase those down at this point in time. And the actual amount of the fees don't come through in January, so we're 1 month behind plus the 23,000. So you add those together, it'll reduce that down by at least half. However, the fees are lower than what we anticipated, so we're actually going back and having a good review of those landings compared to the fees that were actually charged for those landings to see the demographic or this dissection of what is landing, how much we're getting for those fees.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, can you just explain that comment about our own debtors and the AVDATA funding? I maybe wrongly was of the assumption that AVDATA collected all of the landing fees. Are you saying that we have some direct debtors that don't go through AVDATA?
No, councillor. What actually, we changed the billing system of the airport, and it used to be the council used to take, actually bill customers for the revenue. Coming through from the 1st of July, we went to AVDATA, which is how it was used previously. AVDATA bill all our bills out, they all go out. They collect the funds for those bills coming through. However, they maintain on their ledger a debtor amount, which they're progressively collecting on behalf of council, but they'll only remit what revenue that they, or cash that they have actually received coming in. So when we book it into our ledgers, it's on a cash basis.
Right.
Yeah, so it comes in on a cash basis. It's a time delay coming through ultimately at the end. But in the end, we just got to chase those debtors down. AVDATA do supply us with recalcitrant ones that don't pay, which we take further action to. We take them to recoveries and so forth, to try and recover the funds.
Yeah. Does the revenue figure, is that on a cash basis of the funds actually received, or is that $23,000 of unreceived funds? Is that reflected in that number of 72,000? Should it be closer to 49?
Correct. Yeah, that's what I was saying before. All we've got in our books at the moment is the 23,000, the cash component of it only, not the actual billings that have gone through. We looked at the AVDATA side to see how much they had outstanding at the end of February. There was $23,500 outstanding at the end of February coming through.
So we're still, even if that money comes in, still 49.
Correct. Yeah. And that's the reason, again, councillor, as I was saying, we need to go back and have a look more into the actual data, because the landings are only down by 150, 200 landings overall, and that's about 4,500 landings. Why is there still a lower revenue number coming through? What is the breakdown of what we're receiving? Is there more lower shy-based planes coming in where we get the 50% discount coming through, or what the size, the weight, all that sort of thing? So we need to do a bit more work.
It's evidently a systemic problem. If we've got the same number of transactions, but we're actually generating less income.
Yeah.
All right, so
it's another one where we need to have a look at that and do that work. So then we can work out a fee structure and say, okay, well, our fee structure at the moment is not working. How about we revisit that and go back to the community and say, this is our new fee structure going forward.
Absolutely.
Moving into transport for New South Wales state road revenue, it's high by about $400,000. So obviously the work requests have been quite buoyant coming through with the resealing and heavy patch programs that they've had over there with a lot of our inclement weather that's gone through for the last probably 12 months. There's an expected additional 600,000 on top of our overall budget coming into the mix. I'm just trying to gauge what we expect transport to request us to do before year end, and then we'll take up a vote in the March numbers. We have noted that with the cyclone weather that was up north, that a lot of the transport money has now been shifted to just underneath the border. So we might not get a massive influx of private works coming through into the mix, but we're expecting at least 600,000 above what we anticipated the budget overall. And you'll see on the other side of that, we've had a lot more costs obviously coming through as well, which we've done a lot of work in the meantime. Regional roads grants is higher by about 297,000. We received a first milestone of the local roads and community infrastructure program, and that's work's been done on Button Road. So we'll be doing that before the end of this financial year. Local road grant revenue is up by about 100,000. This again is the financial assistance grants increase coming through, plus also a little bit more money for Moonee and Brook to finalise that funding program. Transport auxiliaries, grant revenue is up by about $620,000, primarily due to the additional $606,000 we received for the handover of the road of Kelly Street from a state road to a local road. So that's primarily the funds coming through there. And our water revenue was higher by about $800,000. So we've had higher consumption coming through. So in our area is probably a little bit drier, so we've got a little bit more consumption coming through. And also we changed our water billing rates for ourselves coming into the mix last year to make it more commercial, which has increased it slightly as well. We've also had a little bit of activity with development with Section 64 contributions, which is quite pleasing as well. So that's been quite handy.
Just returning to the transport auxiliaries number, the 606,000 for income or funding for Kelly Street, is that restricted or is that going to general revenue?
We'll put that back into a restricted asset. And that's one of the notes that we've got going through in the mix as well, coming into this the report. So overall, up by about $3.7 million. Non-operating revenue and expenditure mainly relates to our internal fleet hire and gravel charges. Both are down at the moment. Our internal fleet hire is down by about $800,000, and our internal gravel charges is lower by about $40,000. The internal fleet hire, obviously we continue that review, so we're getting closer to the end of that to see what the utilisation of all our internal fleet is. We do still struggle for operators, which is a bit of a concern, with a number of our grader drivers and also truck drivers coming through. Obviously they like the dollars out of the mines, but it's very difficult to compete with the private industry. And our internal gravel, we've got to bring into account the January, February numbers as well. So that'll bring that back into alignment with our budget overall. And also we'll be using effective gravel coming through on our capital works up at Barrack Forest Road to finalise that work coming up to the end of May as well. So you see some increases in that revenue streams. Operating expenditure, I beg your pardon, coming through, a little bit overspending in this area here by about $880,000. Main reasons for that, we have a number of ups and downs coming through. There's been some savings across the board, plus also some overs. Financial services costs are down by about $80,000, which is a bit lower than expected salaries. And an increase in our overhead charges, which is pretty well been charged back to some capital works jobs that were coming through. So when we look at our capital works, when we finalise the acquittals, if we're a little bit under budget in some areas, we will recover that back through admin overheads. Fleet management costs lower by about $145,000. It's a very time item that comes through there, time related items. It's reduced repair and servicing costs, but that's not to say that we might have a breakdown that might cost us $100,000 straight up on one of the graders and so forth. So at the moment, touch wood, we've had a good run with repair and servicing of our heavy plant machinery. Governance risk and coming through is higher by about $30,000. Increase in our insurance premiums and public liability, obviously with the increases overall. We're going through looking at our renewals at the moment for our insurances. We're interested to see what the increase is for the year coming forward. So we'll be doing those for these coming into the March period. Information services, mainly a timing factor in this one, down by about $280,000. So we, just slower than expected operating lease on our, equipment that we've got on lease, plus also our use of external consultants, so we haven't had to rely on any external consultants coming into the mix. Plus also we've had staffing vacancies in that area, so probably one staff member been down constantly for the whole year. Infrastructure support costs a little bit higher by about $30,000, just reflected in admin costs. We continue to monitor the ones that are over coming through the mix, just to see why these are over and what the trend is. So we'll continue to monitor that item. Revenue services lower by about 60,000. Just waiting on an invoice for our recovery action that we build out to our residents. So we've got the revenue side of it. We're just waiting on an invoice to come from the provider of that. Government Place Hostel is higher by about 660,000 to the end of February. Obviously, the cost of facility staffing has been way higher with the use of agency staffing over in there due to the shortages of skilled staff within the facility. So we continue to monitor that, but we have to maintain our compliance coming through, which is the main reason why we have to bring in agency staff. Early learning and family daycare costs, high by about 220,000. Yeah, you've got increase in our revenue side of things, but this is the offset. So as I was saying, Councillor Shield beforehand, we're paying the educators out. So that a lot of that cost is the money going back out to those educators coming through. Plus also we've had additional staffing at the ELC with the increased children utilisation over there. So it's on one hand and also on the other hand coming in. Youth services costs are down by about $85,000. We've had a couple of vacancies in that area, which means that there's been lower costs in regards to the actual operations of the youth centre drop-in centres, and also our EIPP program. So we're trying to push that through to bring it up, because the EIPP is grant funded. We need to spend that money on that program. So we'll probably have to engage a consultant to do some what's the word I'm looking for, EIPP children's services.
How long has that position been vacant? Yeah,
Probably the last 2 months.
so not
Yeah,
too long.
not too long, no. So we have go on leave and then they resigned, so that was about 2 months back.
And that EIPP funding is about 120.
No, the EIPP funding is probably about 160.
Yeah. So significant.
Significant, yeah. And it pretty well takes up about 2 to 2.5 FTEs. So if you're down one gap, that it makes a big difference.
Through you, Mr. Chair, can you just flesh out EIPP for me, please?
Yes, Councillor Shields, it's the early intervention program for youth.
Right.
So it's to help them if they've got some mental disorders or health related disorders, broken homes, that type of thing. So it's for disadvantaged kids.
Yeah,
Moving into our sale yards costs, higher than expected costs here. We've had additional costs to operate the facility by about 110,000, and the increase in our truck wash charges. We've gone through another review of a lot of those charges coming into the mix, and we're trying to monitor that and trying to bring down that overspend by the end of the year.
I've seen increased truck wash water usage charges. I think every committee meeting I've been to since I joined the council. I'm assuming that, not being on the committee or the stockyards committee, I'm assuming this is a truck brings in cattle and then it gets washed down to get rid of all the manure and stuff that's in the truck. How is it we're not recovering, or do we have a fixed charge per truck? Do we, or you know, what's happening there that we're not able to recover the water charges to clean a truck?
Probably when you look at it, we're probably recovering our costs. However, when the budget was done up last year, we probably worked on the basis of a lower rate of water charge for sale yards at one point in time. And it was, I think, $1.76, but now we're charging at the commercial rate to make it fair across the community, $2.76 per litre, per megalitre. That's one thing. Also, their use of rainwater, we haven't been able to utilise, obviously, with dry weather. We have a number of tanks up there, and that generally goes into the truck wash side of things. So those require us to draw on our water supply, town water supply coming through. But overall, we'll be looking at the charge, so that's a set fee coming through per minute from the truck wash. So it's one of those ones where the charges that we expected that we charged from the water services is higher than what we anticipated. We did do an adjustment overall. We looked at the charges there, and we were double counting effectively on 1 metre. So we made the adjustment for that, but it's still a little bit higher.
Yeah, I'm just going to add to that, probably just to give councillors certainty. We are recovering the costs, that's not an issue. And as Mr. Phelps said, it comes down to the assumptions made when setting the budget. So when we set the budget, we made an assumption that a certain amount of costs were going to be incurred at the truck wash. And that assumption also included how much rainwater we could use, which is free, compared to how much town water would be required. There's no question that we're recovering the costs. The question comes down to how much assumptions we made in the original as to what the costs or the charges would be, and how much has come to fruition. But we are recovering that cost of the truck wash. The more it's used, the more income we're generating. And as Mr. Phelps said, there was some errors with billing. That's an internal charge between water and sewer and the sale yards. It's been favourable to the sale yards. We've addressed that. It's actually improved the sale yard's position, but it means that there's been less income generated by our water people because they're charging us twice. So we've resolved that matter.
I just wonder for clarity, because we've had a couple of questions last little bit. Could you possibly come back to us with water usage up there and the availability of rainwater and what we're harvesting and sort of what the deficit has been there?
Yeah, we can do that. There is rainwater tanks, I think there's 10 in total. So that generally provides water for internal use and truck wash predominantly. But though, despite being 10 tanks, you would think that would last quite a significant time. The truck wash does get through that very quickly. So if you don't have regular rainfall, we do have to supplement that with town water. But we can provide those things.
I think it could just offer some good clarity. It's as somebody who's spent a bit of time up there watching trucks, it's yes, there's a lot of water going through that. So.
Okay, right, moving down to the next one, which is effectively tourism and Harbour Wallbirds costs, lower by 194,000. There's been a reduction, obviously, in the staffing hours, trying to mitigate lower revenue streams coming through that facility. So it's one of those ones where we try to cut our costs to try and meet the lower revenue streams. Stormwater costs are lower by about 58,000, just being lower maintenance requirements coming through. Street cleaning costs are lower by 44. Here it's mainly a little bit of a timing thing. We've still got 2 town sweeps that happen before the end of the year, so it'll probably chew up a little bit of that, but we are a little bit under budget, which is quite pleasing. Waste facility operation expenses are down by about $170,000. Here we've got a bit lower general curbside collection from our contractor, plus also a reduction in the cost of our bottling based on what we actually thought, which was quite pleasing. So we've done that quite well. Obviously, that's been offset by increases in our state levies that we have for the disposable income coming into our facilities. So that's one of the items that we've had to put into our waste facilities. General revenue costs are higher by 51k. That's pretty predominantly all the costs associated with the SRB, community consultation, and the lodgement of the application to IPART. Governance costs are lower by 112,000, so this is just a lower general management administration cost. With our elected councillors' allowances coming through as well, with the election that happened in September, so there was a period of time where we had a bit of a saving. Plus also there have been lower section 356 donations available to the community, or requests from the community come through, so it's a bit lower in that area as well. Health services cost are lower by about 68,000, reduced cost with customer service, plus also the on-site sewer management inspections today. So we need to increase those inspection regime up back to a level because they're actually behind the KPIs at this point in time. So we're looking at trying to look at increasing that inspection regime. Building costs and town planning costs are down by about $160,000. So we've had a few vacancies in that area over there. So we've had those vacancies together with the lower use of consultants required, which is one quite pleasing. So it'll end up being under budget by the end of the year, which is pleasing from that respect. Not that we have to just monitor our staff there, obviously, with the workloads and stuff coming through. So we have got a number of positions that are open at the moment, and hopefully that's we feel to alleviate any stresses over in that area. Quarry costs are higher by about $500,000. As said in previous meetings, this is more or less looking at winning the material out of our quarry sites. All that will be recovered coming through ultimately in the end from capital works job and maintenance works job. Any stockpile we have at the end of the year, we'll make an adjustment. So you'll see that there'll be a positive hit on the bottom of the budget overall coming into the mix by 30 June. Animal control costs are lower by 34,000. Here we just had a staff member on extended leave, and we've been unable to secure a replacement for that leave. So we're more or less in maternity leave. So the position was only available for 12 months. Had a casual on board, but that casual didn't work out again. So we're just pushing through. Emergency services and fire service costs are lower by 70k. Just a bit of reduced maintenance for the RFS vehicles. Plus also our emergency services levies were a little bit lower than what we anticipated. From our point of view, it's quite pleasing.
That's the first positive I've heard there.
Yes, yeah. The increases, there have been massive increases for the last 4 years in that area. So quite pleasing that it's lower than the budget. Other sport and rec costs lower by about 36,000. We've had a staff member that was redeployed within the community services area, and there's been no replacement in that role. There was more or less a comment across to another position. So there's a possibility that person will go back to that role and re-engage back into the development of sport within the Shire.
It's good to have flexibility.
Yes,
It is.
certainly is.
Well done to those that can offer their services across the
Yeah, 100%.
station.
Parks and gardens costs higher by about 98k. Increased costs for strip tree maintenance, bit of utility costs again being the water charges, and staff training for that area as well. So we continue to monitor those costs because it's an over budget item at this point in time. Similar to sporting grounds, same reasons for the cost increases coming in servicing our fields. So we're continuing to monitor those costs coming through the mix. Aerodrome costs are down by 46,000. So our landing fees are down. Plus also our costs are down. And the main reason for that is because we haven't been able to fill the ARO position out there. We had multiple interviews in regards to that position, but unfortunately haven't been able to successfully secure anybody on tap. So we've had a bit of a cost saving there with that reduced staff vacancy out there. Also, the maintenance out there has been quite pleasing from a point of view that it hasn't grown through the roof. So we haven't had to do as much maintenance coming through to maintain the facility to the point of the compliance regulations by CASA.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just on the whole issue of the aerodrome and the decision to lease Warbirds, and then there was a component of that involved paying half the ARO. Where's all the legalities attached to that gone? Have we got a lease? Is it still under negotiation? Where's that, all that?
Through you, Mr Chair, you recall, councillor, that was a confidential resolution. We've released the open part of that resolution to the community, and staff are actioning the confidential matters, and we'll bring a report back to you when that's complete.
Okay. Okay, moving down to bridge maintenance costs, lower by about 100,000. Obviously with all our replacements, the maintenance hasn't been required coming through for our bridges. However, we've got engagement, which is part of those funds, to undertake some bridge structure checks. So with all our bridges, the concrete bridges are looked at every biannually, and also the timber bridges are looked at annually. Thankfully, we've only got 2 timber bridges left in the Shire, which is great. So we've got 1 year that we may have off from those bridge checks. But all that concrete structures that need to be looked at and checked at the course of the next 3 months. Footpath costs are lower by about 42k, just lower maintenance required today coming through. State roads, as I said earlier, you had increasing in our revenue streams from state roads. Our costs are higher by $800,000. Timing coming through for a lot of the revenue and costs in this area. We do make a smaller amount of money on that works over there, which goes back into the road network itself, into our local road network, we can pardon. So you'll see the increase in our revenue streams, and the costs should come in well and truly under those. Local roads admin costs have been high by nearly $250,000. Here we continue to review that and looking at possible reallocations of some admin costs coming through for our salaries. So we're looking at that area there at the moment. So that will come back into some sort of alignment. Regional road maintenance high by about nearly $500,000. So we've had a fair bit of activity on our regional road network. The increase there of $485,000 includes heavy patching program. I went through and done an analysis of what was making up that maintenance. That heavy patching will go off into capital works. So we'll just reallocate that to the capital works area. We've got about $150,000 or $200,000 in heavy patch program funding.
Thinking too much like a private citizen here, but if I was put my operational into capital, I'd be looking at appreciable item. Then do we end up with depreciation on those items that have moved across?
We do end up with depreciation, but over a 80-year cycle. So if you leave it in operational, effectively it'll be a 100% hit on the bottom line for that year. Over this method where you're actually improving the network and increasing the lifespan of that network coming through, you've got an 80-year frame to write off over.
So about 32 grand in fact.
32 grand? No. 3 grand.
3 grand.
Yeah.
I've got my dot in the wrong
You've got
spot.
your dot in the wrong spot.
Thank you.
Sorry, can you just clarify? Did you say 8 year? 8 year? 80 year.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Moving into our local roads flood damage works. Here we were anticipating doing a real lot of flood works damage coming through. Just through sheer volume of capital works that we've undertaken, we haven't had the available resources for undertake the works for the flood damage. We're looking at the schedule on that at the moment. We're anticipating to do about $1.5 million worth of works. We've done probably $100,000 to date for the year. So we're looking at seeing where we reallocate our resources to try and undertake some of those works before the end of the year. These works are fully grant funded. They're not required to be done until at least 30 June 2026. So we'll just look at our resourcing that are available and undertake those works. Better for us to do it ourselves because we'll get a lot more bang for our buck coming through to do those works in the mix. Sewer admin maintenance, mains maintenance and treatment activities are higher by about $260,000. Just increased mains and pump station maintenance coming through the mix. We've gone through with all the relining works, we've identified a lot of mains maintenance that had to be done. So we've had some contractors going through and actually doing a lot of the renewal works around that. Again, as with the heavy patching, we'll go through and review those costs. The guys on the ground believe that they're out maintenance, but from an accounting point of view, we might be able to show them as a renewal to our actual network, so we might be able to bring those into capital as well. So that'll reduce be better for our bottom line overall. Water supply costs are higher by budget by about 66K. Again, this one's only mainly in regards to water usage from the Glenville Dam. We received a late bill coming through the end of the 24 financial year, which makes up the majority of that 66.
I see on Tenderlink this week we're looking for tenders to reline a large diameter concrete pipe up at Glenville. I wonder if you would speak to that.
Yeah, through your chair. It's been reported through Infrastructure Services Committee. There's some brackets holding the pipeline at the Glenville Dam end of the pipe that need replacing. Obviously, you need to take some of the pipeline out of commission while you do that work. So we've had to wait till the cooler months. So it's taken us a few months to get the design completed. Now we're in the process of calling tenders, and intent is to do that during the cooler months when we've got lower water utilisation and we can keep the storage in our own system and not rely on drawing from the dam so much. So that's the intent. It'll probably be done, as I say, June, July period if we can get the tenders in time and award that contract.
Just on that, and I know I should go with Regional Infrastructure Services, but could you maybe explain as to how that damage has occurred? Is there any other parts of that pipeline that may be on this way?
From memory, inside the wall there's a brackets on a concrete wall with a pipeline strapped to the brackets. It's obviously a very moist environment. It's the brackets have corroded, and if they continue to corrode, there's a fear that the pipeline will actually fall or break. So those brackets need to be rebuilt. So the design has looked at both the sizing of the brackets and the fixture to that concrete wall to provide security. I'll probably need to get the water guys to give you a more detailed explanation, but that's it in short.
So that's the limit of our exposure of as far as we know, that one piece of works.
That's to my understanding, yes.
Thank you. So overall, our operation expenditure, as you can see from the discussions coming through, there was a lot of ups and there's a lot of downs in regards to a lot of those items. So more or less going back to about $900,000 spent at this point in time. Moving into our capital works area. So again, we've got a number of ups and downs coming through in this area. Overall, we're in front of our budget coming through, which is overspent at the moment by $730,000, which you might expect is quite pleasing because we're actually spending the capital works, but if we're over budget in projects, and that is not good. So we'll go through what those overs and unders are. Government Place, unfortunately there was an emergency replacement for a resident nurse call system out there, but we've had to spend $107,000 to upgrade that to bring it into compliance with regulations. Youth Centre building lower at the moment by 172. It's on schedule and on budget coming through. It's just the timing of the actual payments being made. Sale capital works is high by about 77,000. Again, we've had an emergency replacement of the PA system up there. The PA system that was in place failed. And also we had finalisation of the lagoon sludge removal. So that's now all complete. And that's one of those items that is like a 1 in 20, 1 in 30 year program. Liverpool Street stormwater replacements lower by about $60,000. At the moment, we're currently planning this works, going through looking at the design. The works relates to down at Dean Street there, where it's got that big dip that goes through as you're going out towards Seda. So we're looking at designs around that at the moment. It's expected that we're hoping to get that done by the end of the year, but it's more now likely to happen in the 25-26 year. So that'll be deferred into next year's DPOT budget. The pedestrian crossing at Venetia Street, this is a carryover project from last year. It's high by 85,000. It's been one that's on the books continually. We've got some votes coming through to cover off the cost of that project in the mix. Off-leash dog area in Scone, over by about 42,000. Had an opportunity to acquire some land from Transport for New South Wales under the bypass, which is a great area for that off-leash dog area. So we've gone through and secured that land. Bill Rose complex and bollard installations, a little bit behind in our initial budget timing in this one. The initial plan stage for the installation is in progress at the moment, and then that'll be put into place before the end of the financial year. White Park, here we've got a couple of items coming through that we've had to upgrade our internal roads with a few weather events that happened down there. The gravel tracks that were going around made it untenable for big trucks to actually go into the facility without cutting up the roads continually. So we've gone through and put a lot of gravel down to compact those road structures to make them more accessible to vehicles and horse floats and so forth coming into the mix. So it was work that had to be completed. Our White Park electrical supply upgrade, that's the finalisation of that project. That's been a long-winded project with a lot of regulations that were put onto us by Ausgrid and delayed by Ausgrid. So we've gone through and now that is up and going. So we've got that in place. We'll be doing a vote coming through for that because we'll be expecting the finalisation of the grant funding for that as well. Coulson Creek Road, higher than budget by about nearly $400,000. That project is continuing on budget and on schedule. So we're anticipating for it to happen, be finalised by the end of this calendar year. So that'll be pleasing from that angle. Barrington Forest, the stages 1 and 2, a little bit lower the budget by about $400,000 at the moment. Just the scheduling of our resources up there. We're finalising Hunter Road, which is a portion of that section of road, Moonee Brook, Barrington Forest and Hunter Road. That project is continuing on budget, so we won't be going over budget in that project, and we'll be trying to get as far as we can. The likelihood is that we may not achieve the full length of what we anticipated coming into the mix. The funding bodies approved will put a time frame on us. So the time frame is that everything has to be finalised by 30 June this year from a reporting point of view as well as works point of view. So our works will run through until probably 31st of May, at which time will give us a month to do the final reporting and receive the funding for it.
That's good. Had to get off the road from Boxy coming past work there the other day, and it says a lot of machinery working up there. Do we have a likely idea where we're going to get to? We're going to get up to Narrabri there, or whereabouts are we?
I probably have to take that on notice, Mr. Chair. Pretty well it's gone through the infrastructure committee meeting where that will end up coming through. But we have to take on notice and get the availability where we'll get to. We've thrown as many resources as we can to try and push it up the hill as far as we can.
Yeah. No, it looks like you're,
Yeah, I think you were referring to Narracor, is that the bridge, just past what those could refer to as Hilux Corner, I think it's, I know it's a bit of a local name, but yeah. We won't quite get to that position. Having said that, I have written to the road minister in the last week, just asking if there's any possibility of extending the timeframe, because we see ourselves as being penalised for being too efficient. The state government made available funds for us to utilise. We've delivered quite a lot of roadworks at a lower rate than was originally intended, and now, in my view, we're being penalised by having to give the money back because we've been too efficient. If we have wasted money, they've quite happily given us the whole amount. So my argument to the roads ministry is, please give us that extra money. You've already budgeted for it, let us spend it in our own timing for the remainder of, say, the next 6 months. I suspect I won't get a favourable answer, but at least I'm on the record as putting our position to the minister.
It's a unique position we sort of find ourselves in there, and it'd be disappointing to leave money on the table if it makes actual progress up there as well. So any support that can be found in your discussions, General Manager, with the Minister, yeah, certainly be welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Moving into the next one there, which is Gum Lane over at Berryville. That project's now complete. It came down the budget, which is quite pleasing. The Barron Forest Slip Works, further up the road from where we're doing our works. It's higher than budget by about 130,000 at the moment. The project is continuing ahead of schedule and on budget, which is quite pleasing, and it's expected to be completed before the end of the year, which is quite amazing. So I think we had some funds pushed into the next financial year. So obviously those won't need to be there for the next financial year now. Moving into the Scone CBD, pretty well finalisation has been done on the major works down there. A bit low at the moment by about $100,000, but we have to do a little bit of line marking and modifications for the high pedestrian area down in the main street. So we'll be looking at doing those works over the course of the next month or two. Just waiting on approval from Transport in regards to design work for that line marking. Water treatment telemetry upgrade is lower by about 50k. We've got it in the budget to be undertaken. However, there's been no upgrade works required today, so we'll probably be looking at whether or not we take that out of the budget completely. Here we've got the water. In water, the Glenmore pipeline renewals is the one previously as we discussed with the works. So we've upgraded the pump. The remaining works looks like it'll be deferred until next year with that tender that's going out coming through. Sewer mains renewals lower by about 75k, so we've only had works coming through. So overall, when you add all those ones coming through, the main items there, it's about $750,000 spent. So that gives us the bottom line, which is the 2.69 million, which is a positive variance to budget at this point in time, obviously made up significantly by the revenue streams. Moving into the budget position, budget position remains the same coming through. Our votes that we've got in the report effectively net each other off, so they come to a nil effect on the revised budget. Bank funds and investment report. At the end of February, we've got $31.77 million in the bank, of which we've got 31.09 at the end of February, but also we've just got there the investment portfolio at the end of January as well, which was 32.94. You'll see that there will be a dip over the course of the next probably 2-3 months of funds that will come out of those investments. Obviously, with the works we're doing on Main Road 358, we'll have a lot of capital expenditure coming through, which we've received the grant funding already and put it on an investment coming into the mix. Schedules obviously are included in the report. External loans, our loan balance at the end of February was 28.23 million. No loans this year, and the report at the end of February obviously included as well. Our internal loans, we continue to move with the Office of Local Government in regards to the internal loans that we acquired at the end of the June 24 year. Continuing to receive our funding that's outstanding, from government sources. We've had multiple discussions with the Office of Local Government, and from those discussions, they more or less come back to us and said, to be safe by the end of the financial year, it might be worthwhile to maintain a $5 million threshold there in those loans for another 2 years while we get ourselves back on track from a cash point of view. But while we're building up our internal reserves, they're suggesting, okay, if you keep that in your back pocket for the next 2 years, and you don't have to utilise it, it's just available if there's a cash flow crisis at any point in time. We've got to make a capital project going on. So that was quite pleasing from the Office of Local Government to hear that. So they're looking at trying to help us, obviously along the way. So we'll be going through just doing an application to before the end of this month, just to can we extend that $5 million for another 2 years? At which stage the minister will have to go through the discretion of whether or not he approves that.
Well, notwithstanding that approval or discretion, will the repayment of that loan continue the pace and?
Correct, yeah. So that's as per the original bid rate. Through. Moving into our next item there, the capital expenditure report. Here we've reduced our overall capital expenditure down to $66 million, so we've had to defer a few projects coming through the mix, which is reduced down from the $71 million that was adopted. Overall, today we've spent $35 million, 53%. We're up to about 2/3 at the moment, 66%. So we're a little bit behind on actual spend coming through the mix. We should have some chunky numbers coming through from Main 358, obviously, and the finalisation of the roads up Barrington Forest Road there. So we'll be pushing through with that. At the March meeting, we'll probably come back with a lot more votes in regards to any projects that we think that will need to be deferred. So we're getting to the stage now where we're finalising our depot for next year, and we need to know what projects we need to push forward into next year and what ones will remain for this year to be completed. So we're going through that process at the moment. And apart from that, Mr. Chair, that's the report.
Through you, Mr. Chair. In terms of Government Place, I've been approached by a couple of family members of residents there, and there's still some outstanding invoices that they haven't received the invoices, and one particular resident I think's got invoices or outstanding amount of about $16,000.
Yeah, no, we've definitely gone through and looked at our respite. A lot of that was the respite care side of things. We've gone through, looked at those, and raising the invoices accordingly, coming through the mix. Yeah, I think I spoke to a couple of residents over there in regards to that too, Councillor.
Thank you.
I wonder if you could just quickly go through us, that report, page 32, councillors, and the budget variations. Just quickly go through that, and then I'll.
Yeah. Again, you down to Mr. Chair, it's like going down through those reports. But they're pretty well there just for the information. Obviously, you'll see the 15 through to 18, the votes there come back to nil. That's pretty well it's high level summary of our reports coming through the mix. Then you've got your bank reconciliation account there at the end of February. As you can see, we received a lot of money coming in from milestone payment for 358. They dropped away. Investments coming through, pretty good. You've got your loan balances coming through, then the capital works summary coming through, which will give you the high level numbers. And as Mr. Chair looked at our votes coming through the mix on page 32, we have a number of items that go offset each other coming through the mix, and happy to go through those and you see fit. Very clever.
One thing I do know with the reports is that we don't seem to have restricted assets report.
The restricted assets report we only bring back to quarterly meetings. would council like to have them at each meeting, monthly meeting? More than happy to supply monthly meetings, no problem. It's up to yourselves.
Probably a useful thing if we're going to have votes also on budget variations.
Yep, more than happy for them to come, but that's a monthly meeting, but as I said, it was more or less with a larger quarterly, review.
All right. Everybody's happy, I'm happy to take to a vote if I've got a mover.
I'll move that.
Councillor Shields, seconded. Councillor Stoll, all those in favour? It's unanimous, Robin. And, we'll move on to the next item of business, the property update, please. Manager.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll quickly just go through the top part of this, but I'll spend a bit of time maybe on the bottom part of the report. So, as normal, we provide just a bit of an update on commercial leases. It's about 35 of the 37 currently leased out at present. There's a bit of an update there on our property strategy items, but I've drawn out of that the key property matters which I want to sort of spend a bit of time on today. First being White Park and Golf Course survey. So at the moment, that lot is a single lot. It covers the entire White Park space, and the golf course space. We've just commissioned a survey of that to clearly define the boundaries of those two parcels of land. And in doing so, there is a small encroachment from the actual golf club onto what would probably be the golf course land, although it's on the White Park side of the bypass. We want to address that small encroachment. So rather than creating two lots, being for White Park and the golf course, we want to create three, one being White Park, golf course, and a small parcel of land, which we can then address the encroachment, leasing that back to the golf club and making, I guess, the arrangements there legal to some degree, rather than having illegal encroachments we can do by way of lease. What that will require, though, is a similar process to what we did previously with its community land. We need to reclassify that very small portion as operational. So if you look at the attachment, which is on page 40, I believe, there's a subdivision drawing there. The bypass is a nice natural divider of those two lots. On the high side, you've got White Park, and you'll notice that the fence line that we've constructed around White Park follows the property boundary effectively in the master plan arrangements that we've put in place there. The lower portion is the golf course, and the red outline is this small portion of land. When I say encroachments, there's a small encroachment from the shed. There's a putting green that sort of is an encroachment from ours back onto the club. So with encroachments both ways, and there is a small car park encroachment over on the left-hand side of that red parcel. So we've been talking to the golf club in particular about trying to tidy this up. As I say, the easiest way is to, with the council resolution and consent, to start the process to make that operational land so that we can lease that and address those encroachments. Before I move on, I'm happy to take questions in regard to that particular matter. No, okay.
No, yes.
Sorry, yeah.
So the golf club land is not council owned, that's the case, isn't it?
No, the golf club, which is the golf club and the restaurant down there, is privately owned. It's actually owned by the RSL club, I believe.
Correct.
Right.
Except for a portion of the car park at the back of the club, that's Crown land. So where it stops with the asphalt, yeah. Where the actual asphalt stops, that's Crown land going back from there. It's a funny situation, Councillor.
And why is it the case that we are going through these manoeuvres in order to allow the golf course to build a shed which is too big for the land that they own?
That's,
what is the attraction to us of them building something which then does create a physical encroachment?
I guess, councillor, they already have encroachments. There's currently presently car park encroachment onto their land, but as I said, we're also encroaching partially onto their land, with putting green being on their side. And they have wanted to build a shed on the the eastern boundary of their portion. And they can build a shed within their lot boundary, but they have to shorten it by 2 metres. So they have sought, I guess, some guidance from us as to whether we would entertain a further encroachment. And rather than just give them approval, the intent was, let's get this land matter tied up. Now, I guess the way to do that is by converting this to operational land, and then you can enter into leases. We could make the entire parcel operational land, but I can't see a community being comfortable with White Park being operational or the golf course being operational land at this stage. I think the community expectation would be that that would remain as community land. So we're simply carving off a very, very small parcel of land that is problematic and has these various encroachments from both parties onto the other land, so that we can get some sort of, legal arrangement in place.
Sort of just kicking the can down the road, isn't it? Really. I appreciate that it's a solution.
Well, I guess
Remain.
the alternative is we turn a blind eye to it because it's been in place for many, many years, which I'm not overly comfortable with, but.
Well, that creates other potential difficulties with adverse possession.
Yeah, true. Or the final solution is, we remove our encroachments and we ask them to remove theirs. But that's probably not a good outcome for either party either.
All right, so it's a course of pragmatism rather than being an elegant solution.
Yeah. Any further questions? No, okay, I might move on to the second item. Then, we brought to this committee the Rosedale Estate subdivision drawing, and this committee asked that then go further to the Murrurundi CAC. We had a meeting with the Murrurundi CAC in early February and actually walked across the site. I think gave the CAC members and the councillors who are present there a bit of a feeling for the available land for subdivision, as well as the land that King of the Ranges are leasing. And we have entered into a further 12-month extension for the King of the Ranges. One of the items that the CAC asked was to bring back a more detailed subdivision drawing of what could be obtained on that land, and indeed show where the boundaries are currently. So if you go to page 41 of the attachment, this is probably a bit more detailed than the previous subdivision layouts you've seen, but it also overlays the couple of fence lines, and this will make more sense for those who have actually been on site. Those two red vertical lines that run north to south on the drawing show the current fence lines that are in place. So the intent was not to really get much of a decision from this committee at this stage, but just to let you know that we have undertaken this piece of work, and then to forward that on to the Murrurundi CAC. They asked to be involved in the decision making. Obviously, they're only an advisory group, but they can provide some advice back to council on what they feel would be the next steps. Again, happy to take any questions in regard to that matter. The next item was in regard to some land adjustments out at the airport. There's two matters out there. I can probably take you to the diagram on page 42. That's a subdivision drawing. Putting aside the red bounded area, firstly, I'll come back to that in a second. If you look at lots 52 and 53, which are just below that, when the actual construction works were undertaken out at the airport, possibly 4 or even 5 years ago. That taxiway that runs to the western side of lot 52 and 53 couldn't be constructed where it was intended to be constructed because there was a large drain running through that section. So it had to be constructed further to the east, which meant that it impinged on lots 52 and 53. So the actual taxiway at present is partially over that boundary of 52, 53. We're in the process of readjusting the lot boundaries there. So that's just simply just aligning lot boundaries with physical construction works. So that's the first piece of work. They're owned by council, those lots, and we have continual, they're just continually up for sale. As we get inquiries, we negotiate with them, and we've had a couple of inquiries about these parcels, but cannot probably sell them until we address that matter. So it's just fixing that issue. The second issue, however, is you'll see lot 2 and lot 54 that bound that red parcel of land. That red parcel of land is actually a dedicated road in that lot. It's completely on the air side, though, so to get access to that road, you have to go through a locked gate off the formal road to the western side of that. And once you go through that locked gate, you have access to the airport. The owner, there's a single owner that owns both lots 2 and lots 54. The owner has asked, would they be able to acquire that land? Now, to do so, we require council to close that road and do a boundary adjustment on lot 2 and 54 to extend it right through Bummin Road. The practicality of that is, though, that road currently services the other road on the eastern side of that boundary, and in order to do that, some roadworks would need to be done back onto Barn Road on the eastern end, and moving that locked gate from the western end to the eastern end to allow those property owners to continue to have access. It's all doable, but those costs would need to be put back to the property owner, and we need. I've simply told the property owner, before we go too far down that path, I need to ensure council is comfortable with the process. If you are, I think there is a solution where no existing property owner is disadvantaged, and we could potentially close that road and sell it off to the property owner. So there is some financial benefit to doing this, and I would put the costs of resurveying and road reconstruction back to the existing property owner if they will be willing to do so.
I know, is there a timing issue with this, or would it be appropriate for that to be referred to the airport users committee for their comment as well?
Absolutely, and in fact, we're putting the agenda together for an airport user meeting, which I think schedules for later next week. So if this committee was comfortable with the process generally, I would absolutely support taking it to the airport committee and getting their concurrence.
Just in terms of the actual location of this diagram, this is driving along State Road / Barham Road. This is before you get to Warbirds, isn't it? This is
If you're travelling in a westerly direction,
in a westerly direction.
it's after you pass Warbirds.
It's after you pass Warbirds. Oh, okay. Yeah.
No further questions? Okay, so if the committee is comfortable with those 3 items, we'll progress them accordingly. And in regard to the airport one, we'll actually take that to the airport committee next week.
So, if I should, I'll still move that there, and we'll just progress that. Roll it down, the note on that there, ain't. Or should I put a note on that?
You could add a .5 to the or add it to the existing .4 that support boundary adjustments subject to airport committee's concurrence. It's probably the easiest way.
If we add that to 4,
Yeah.
if 4 councillors are happy with that.
Yeah.
I've got to move through all those 4 please. Move councillor Stoles, seconded councillor Fraser, all those in favour. The ayes have it. We'll move along now. Just adopting the minutes of the Scone Upper Hunter regional sale yards. I'll move to there.
if you didn't attend that meeting, you can't move the adoption, can you?
Well, you can, yeah, yep, for sure. As long as you're happy with what you're saying there, you can move that. If anybody needs any more information while we've got staff on hand, feel free to ask and discuss.
No, since it. I think some of the things that are attributed to me are not entirely accurate. There's also a typo on page 46.
Yep.
Councillor Fraser reiterated it's a ligament question like that. I want that.
Legitimate.
One would hope.
Thank you, Councillor Fraser.
Maybe you want to, are you confident you've got a list of changes there, councillor Fraser, or you?
No, that was, oh, look, as I say, there was one, now there's one thing that was attributed to me and I'm not entirely.
I mean, we will have,
convinced of.
yeah, it will come back to the next SARIA committee meeting because it'll have to be adopted through there. The minutes will have to be adopted, so maybe that's the place to.
I mean, we could note the minutes, I suppose, whether we adopt them.
Yeah. All right. We've got a mover on that front then.
Yes, I'll move it, noted.
Right, councillor Fraser, seconded. Councillor Stiles, all those in favour? Thank you. You guys have it, right? What Park Management and Development Committee? We got a mover to endorse the minutes of this committee.
Just been appointed, that's March 2020.
Yeah, there is a small amendment there, Robin, you could note it to the date, the 12th of March 2025. It's under the recommendation there.
That's it's a wording issue. Why are we endorsing the minutes of the White Park?
Yeah.
Why are we just not noting them?
Councillors, you can note.
Yeah,
Confirm.
I think it's
endorsement of the committee meeting.
Yeah, and I think it's a good comment, councillor Fraser. I did balk at that, but yeah, I think that's a good comment to make there. And I moved that we move this as noting the minutes. Please, Robin. Thank you, councillor Fraser. Do I have a mover that we note these minutes, please? Move councillor Fraser, second councillor Shields, all those in favour. The ayes have it. Now, I've just got a mover for the notation of the previous questions, please.
There was a matter, I raised in the last meeting the issue of the cost of debt recovery. I know the response that has been reduced is a debt recovery flow chart, which does not answer my question. The question that I asked was what were the charges being charged? Were they in line with the amounts that are recovered according to the Uniform Civil Procedure Regulation rules? Or are we paying a premium on top of those figures? If that could be provided to me for the next meeting, that was the thrust of my question. I'm quite conversant with the debt recovery process. But also know that the language used in the flow chart is archaic. Some of it's no longer issued in the report. However, my question was, what are the actual expenses being charged by the people conducting debt recovery like that? Have that answer.
Take that on that, please. Thoughts? You? Questions there? I'll move that. The second. Councillor Souls, all those in favour? You guys have it. Move on to our final piece of business for today was noting the grants report. And I might get the general managers to speak to the grants here perhaps, just to give us a little bit of insight where we're moving along and whether perhaps, most importantly, whether we've come about an employee to fill that grants position and.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll answer your last question first. Yes, we are in the process of making a final offer to a grants person, so that is in train. However, we continue to make applications for grants regardless, and we've taken on some of the feedback from the last meeting, and we've added an additional column to that to show whether there's any council contributions now. So that's a request for enhancement that's been added. Happy to go through any of the individual grants, and if either myself or Mr. Phelps can answer those questions, we will. You'll see we're still waiting for outcomes on a couple of large energy code ones. We were given indication about a month ago that that would be announced by now. With Cyclone Alfred, the minister had set a date for announcement and took off up the north coast to be part of that matter, and meant that the announcement has been delayed. So we're still waiting for an official announcement of those large ones. Most of the others are still in the process of either being assessed or waiting for an announcement. So we've got some new open funding opportunities closing over the next month or so, and they're shown on the bottom of the report. So we'll continue to make applications where applicable for some of those grants, and we're more than happy to take questions.
Of these grants, the issue I have with the grants applied for is how much of these are for capital assets and how much of these do any of these provide assistance to the ongoing costs of operations of council.
Through you, Mr. Chair, probably the large majority of these are capital. There could be some supporting grants, and I'll let Mr. Phelps maybe address it if he's got access to which ones are predominantly operational, but we are very, very heavy into the capital in regard to grant funding. It's just the way grant funding structure.
Yeah, just through the chair, you'd find that the majority of those are all capital. There's probably one, maybe two, only one's probably the heritage area, with providing grant funding for those ones, but the majority of them are predominantly for capital works. The lower ones there with 7,500, 11,000, they would be just more or less operational programs that run. So they're not as though they'll come back to cover our own operational expenditure.
Yeah, I was just going to make that point. That's 7,500 for Department of Education for delivery of free health and development checks within the PLCs. That would be a program that would be run. We're not delivering now, but if we got the grant, we would deliver. So whilst it would be operational, it would be an additional operational cost, and it would only simply be an additional service that we would be able to provide.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was getting at, is that none of these will effectively make a difference to the bottom line of the operation expenses of council, but the capital, once they come through, might increase the operational expenses of council because it creates another asset we have to maintain.
True.
Just for you, Mr. Chair, as well, possibly the only benefit that the council may have will be our own resources. So we might be able to recover some costs through actually doing our work.
Chairman, mate, just a quick one. The community building partnership grant, what's that for? The very first one. submitted March 25. Project cost 63, funding requested 29, council contribution 34.
That's been lodged by Mr. Pringle. I did ask Mr. Pringle if he'd be available. We had another meeting today, so I'll have to take that one on notice.
And the second part is Energy Co indicated that there were 4 grant applications. There's 3 listed here, or is it that the footbridge and pathway are counted as 2?
There was the 4th project was the community project, which the community applied for.
Thank you.
All right, for the move for noting the grants, please. Councillor Stoll, seconded Councillor Shields, all those in favour, I think the ayes have it. Can I please have mover to move us into confidential, please? Move Councillor Stoll, move seconded Councillor Shields, all those in favour. Ayes have it. Robert.